The Falcons have a big decision to make at pick 8 with a brand new head coach. They have plenty of needs. Let's dive into it. So before we get into it, be sure to like, subscribe, and comment. And also be sure to follow me on all social media at JK Bogan. So at wide receiver, which I want to talk about because the Falcons have pick 8. You have the Titans picking ahead of the Falcons. And then, of course, the Giants, which we've talked about. If you want to see those previous videos that I talked about, you can check them out on my channel. But at the wide receiver position, let's talk about it, because right now the Falcons, they just signed one guy, okay? They signed Darnell Mooney in free agency, who I'm not as high on, by the way. I know he had a 1,000-yard season, but since he has been just not very great. In addition to that, they also got Rondale Moore via the trade, and here's the thing. Drake London can be a number one receiver, but he's even better when he doesn't have to be a number one receiver. And the Falcons have an interesting opportunity here because at pick 8, and they have plenty of capital, especially in the third round, that they could use to package and move up. I'm looking at Drake London right now. He's a great outside option for Kirk Cousins. I don't feel like they have another outside option outside of him. I mean, you do have, of course, you have Kyle Pitts, who you could flex out wide, but I think you pretty much, Mooney's going to be more of a slot guy. Rondale Moore's going to be more of a slot to gadget, right? He's going to be kind of like a gadget guy. So if the Falcons were to trade up and get Marvin Harrison Jr., I actually love the fit. Wouldn't be shocking at all because I actually think he's really similar to former Falcons wide receiver and legend Julio Jones. That's actually my player comp for him. I think they could do something like that. I think they could trade up for Rome Odunze or Malik Neighbors, which I think would be a smart move. The Falcons really should focus on size alongside London. You want to give Kirk Cousins the best window to throw to. And keep in mind, like, Justin Jefferson's not the tallest receiver in the league. Neither was KJ Osborne, and neither is Jordan Addison. So, it's not like he has to have that, but I think it really does help and benefit him. I think the best fits are Harrison and Odunze. Odunze would be a great fit here if he fell to 8, but I think the way the draft is expected to go, I don't expect any of these top 3 receivers to fall into the Falcons' lap, if I'm being honest. Looking at tight end, we kind of laughed about it. Brock Bowers, right? There's a lot of, obviously it pisses off fantasy football fans and everything with, Kyle Pitts and Brock Bowers. But, as funny as it might be, Brock Bowers does make a lot of sense there at pick 8. Even if they traded down, they could probably still get him. Bowers, it's funny because early on in the mock drafts and everything in the draft process, everyone had Brock Bowers going in the top 5. Now it seems like he's falling all the way to 18. It's like no one really knows where he's going to go on draft night. Connor reminds me of Kyle Pitts. I didn't really buy that he was going to go super early in the draft, and the Falcons ended up taking him super early. Same thing with Ezekiel Elliott with the Cowboys. They just did not see them taking a running back 4th overall, and they did it. Brock Bowers is probably going to go earlier than maybe we all think, and he could go to the Falcons. Another weapon, but he's a much better blocker than Kyle Pitts. He's much more real tight end than Kyle Pitts. Kyle Pitts is still a good tight end. I think he's underrated in that regard, and we're going to see that this year, especially with Kirk Cousins throwing him the ball. But I think Brock Bowers would be huge and would be another weapon. Another option is offensive tackle. And now you might sit there and say, wait a minute, Caleb McGarry at right tackle, Jake Matthews at left. Do they really need an offensive tackle? Well, hear me out here, because the NFL draft often gets mistaken as something that's built for here and now. Okay. And there are a lot of people that fall into this trap. This is the last thing after free agency to improve your team. And yes, that is true, but it's also for the future. I mean, these are 4-year, if you get a guy in the first round, up to 5-year contracts. So this is going to help solidify your roster. This is your opportunity to build for the future, to also build for the here and now, but build for the future. And with the future in mind, also be able to balance out your books. You're not spending tons of money with the draft. Now that the rookie wage scale is way down from where it used to be. Because back in the days of Sam Bradford and whatnot, you were paying those quarterbacks, Matthew Stafford, you're paying rookie quarterbacks so much money. And now, you're not paying rookies that much money at all. Nobody in the first round makes that much money. It's why the quarterbacks continue to go so high, because it's affordable. Well, the same thing goes for pick 8, and at this point, if you could get a franchise left tackle to be waiting in the wings for when Jake Matthews falls off, if he does at all, that would be big. And at this point in time, at pick 8, you could be picking best player available. There's a good chance Fashionu's there. There's a chance Alt is there. And so with that said, I think Matthews and McGarry, who is 29, so McGarry I don't think would be most likely, but they do have deals that you could get out of fairly easily without taking on tons of dead money if you had to. And you could trade them. And if you don't think, like if you drafted a guy like Joe Alt, right, and someone was interested in acquiring Caleb McGarry, and you're just going to play Joe Alt at right tackle his first year, Caleb McGarry would have plenty of interest around the league, okay? So that is an option. I'm not saying it'll 100% be the option, but I think it is an option for the Falcons. I think they should be considered at this point in time the dark horse candidate to take a tackle. I think they're going to be likely the best player available here, whether it's Alt, Fashanu, or Fuaga, depending on how you rank them. There's going to be a blue chip prospect here. And, I know a lot of people are saying, they're going to draft Dallas Turner, maybe, but it could just be me not being as high on Dallas Turner as the consensus. But I think it'd be a little bit of a reach. Whereas if you're passing on, a 10-year tackle who is going to be one of the best in the league for a long time, just because you have a positional need, I don't think you're drafting correctly. Because think about this, okay? Your need now is your need now. It doesn't mean that it'll be your need next year or the year after, the year after that. These are 4 to 5 year deals we're talking about. And with Jake Matthews, who played really well last year, I'm not even saying to rush him out or Caleb McGarry, but if you do get Alt, maybe you could move things around on the offensive line. Maybe you move somebody to guard. Maybe you just figure it out, because going out and getting the best players possible, sometimes it doesn't always work out if there's no need whatsoever. Like taking a quarterback right now, I think would be a mistake, because you have to improve this roster. You made that commitment when you went out and you signed Kirk Cousins. You need to make sure that you are maximizing his time, because the window is going to be very, very small when you have Kirk Cousins. I mean, you don't have him for the next 10 years. So with that said, you want to make the most of it and maximize it. So going out and getting somebody like this might seem like, okay, this is a little bit of a mistake. At the same time, though, if they're an upgrade and you're going to have them for the foreseeable future, and it's going to stop you from getting into those growing pains of not having that left tackle in Jake Matthews if and when he's done, there you go. So something to think about as we move over the defensive side of the ball. This is a defensive-minded head coach here, of course, with Raheem Morris, former defense coordinator for the LA Rams. He was also with the Falcons, keep in mind, and was the interim head coach there. So he's been in this building before. And at edge, I think drafting one of Jared Verse and Dallas Turner are probably the most common assumptions in this draft. I think the Falcons do need an edge, but they have put capital into it. And whether you agree with it or not, teams look at that like, hey, you might have already looked at that 2022 third rounder and just given up on him. These teams make actual investments in these guys. So it's not as simple as that. Like Zach Harris in the third round last year, they're not going to just get rid of him. Arnold Ebiketie, second round in 2022, that's a heavy investment. It's a day 2 pick. Same thing goes for D'Angelo Malone in the third round of 2022 out of Western Kentucky. That's the thing, right? So look, you got Lorenzo Carter in free agency, who has shown, bits and pieces. James Smith-Williams, they just signed this year. He's not moving the needle. He's a depth piece. He's not going to start or anything like that. He'll be a rotational guy. They definitely need another guy, and I think they need a guy to be a focal point of the pass rush. Jared Verse feels the most like a Raheem Morris pick. I think Dallas Turner has a lot of upside, probably more than Jared Verse. I think Jared Verse is more likely to work in the NFL. because Verse is a better he's a way better run defender. But in addition to that, I think Verse's skill set translates the most day one. And when you're looking at this team, that seems to me, they're not all in and they're not a win now team, but they're a team that could win now and be really effective in doing so. And Jared Verse feels like the higher floor here. Verse reminds me of Dante Fowler Jr., who was obviously with the Falcons back when Raheem was there. So I'm just going to say I think Verse would probably be the better option. I wouldn't take either at pick 8, but if they were going edge, I could see either of them. Wouldn't mind trading down if I was the Falcons there. I think that would make some sense if you're going to do that. Another option to trade down, because I don't care what anyone says, I don't think an interior defensive lineman in this draft is worth a top 10 pick. But interior defensive line is a need, I would say. This would be the option to trade down. You know, when you look at Raheem Morris last year, and I know from experience covering the Rams that he had Aaron Donald, Bobby Brown III, and Kobe Turner, who probably should have won Defensive Rookie of the Year. Now, when you have those three guys, it makes it easier on your defense because you can do things, you can take risks in the back end of the secondary, be more aggressive because you have those guys up front pushing the pocket and making it a problem. And so, you know, that's what I'll say about that. Having those three guys really helped out Raheem, and Raheem was able to really cook because of that. I would not be shocked if the Falcons traded down here and took either Byron Murphy the second or Jerzon Newton. Grady Jarrett is great, right? He is. He's great. He's a great player. I like some of the options, Onyemata, Goldman. But Murphy and Newton would be massive upgrades, and maybe that's even an understatement. They would be so much better than having an Onyemata there or, you know, Eddie Goldman. And they're not bad players by any stretch, but Murphy and Newton are really, really good. The league has put a big focus on interior pressure, so I feel like this pick would be another example of that. The league really likes interior pressure. I mean, we've seen it with Chris Jones, Kansas City, obviously Donald with the Rams. We saw it with Geno Atkins, before, way back when he was one of the best in the league with the Bengals. Interior rush really hurts the quarterback. You can't step up into a pocket. Now I have you running alongside an arc. And essentially my pass rusher, my edge defender, if he sets the edge, you're not running. And if he's fast enough with the way these guys are running 4.4s and 4.3s off the edge, they're going to chase you down. So interior pressure helps. And if you're not willing to invest heavily on edge, you can definitely invest heavily on the interior. Last but not least, certainly not least, the cornerback position, which I understand, again, a lot of people have them picking an edge, but I think the biggest need is the cornerback room. The reason being is, I'll tell you right now, I only really like AJ Terrell here. Clark Phillips III, he's more of a slot guy, and I like his upside. I think he could be that, legitimate starting slot guy, but Antonio Morrison is a depth piece, nothing more than that. Mike Hughes is okay. They don't have anyone next to Terrell. If you want to maximize having a guy like AJ Terrell, you want to have somebody across from him, somebody that can really make an impact. And so for me, they didn't really address the cornerback position in free agency seriously. You go out and you get Antonio Morrison, and, nothing against him, but, what it really comes down to is he's just a depth guy. So he's not really going to move the needle now, is he? Now, when you look in this draft, there's a lot of different corners. People look at Cooper DeJean. People look at Terrion Arnold. People look at Quinion Mitchell. I think there's only two that could even be justified to go in the top 10, and that is Quinion Mitchell and, of course, Terrion Arnold. Now, would they go cornerback here at pick 8? I don't know, but I could see a trade down option, but you can make the argument that this makes the most sense for them. What I will say is this: if I'm the Falcons, I'm trading down. Okay. There's a reason why I'm trading down here, and I'm only trading down if Romo Dunze or Joe Alt is not there at pick 8, I'm trading down. I think there's a lot of options, and I think it's going to be, there's already so many bases you have to cover that, and I don't think they have tons of needs, right? They have needs, but they're not super, super needy. This team, I think, is going to be really good, could win their division. At the same time, though, why not trade down 3-4 spots, pick up an additional third-round pick, help bolster your roster, because that's where you want to get it. Day 2, there's a lot of good talent there. Why not do that and figure out who you want to pick after that? Because I think there's going to be almost like an embarrassment of riches here at pick 8, where it's like, what do you do? Where do you go? There's a lot of different, realms that they can go, a lot of different things they could cover. It really depends. I think my gut is telling me they're going to pick Jared Verse here at pick 8. That's my gut. I know everyone has Dallas Turner. I think it's going to be Jared Verse. I would trade down, and in trading down, I would probably take best available after that. So if I traded down to say 14th and Jared Verse is still there, I would take Verse. If I traded down to 14th and Newton or Byron Murphy's there, I'd heavily consider picking one of them. Brock Bowers is still there. I would heavily consider picking him. I think when you get into the teens, now you can justify taking wide receivers like potentially Adonai Mitchell from Texas, Brian Thomas Jr. out of LSU, if you really want to take a wide receiver. Personally, I think they need a wide receiver. They also have a really good wide receiver class to comb through. So I think the best option based on this, if they traded down to say 14th, so that's 6 spots, I think Jared Verse would probably still be there. And I think that's probably their best option, but I could even see Quinion Mitchell. So those are my thoughts. Let me know in the comments section below what you guys think. I do think the Falcons are in a great spot to trade down. Now, I've said it on my other channel, being that I cover the Rams, I could see the Rams trading up to 8 here if a guy like Rome Odunze fell. And I'll say this, I wouldn't be surprised if the Falcons did make that move, because they could get like the Rams 2025 first round pick and a 3rd rounder in this year. And that would be a good trade. But if they did that with Rome Odunze still available, I think that would be a mistake that the Falcons might regret. So those are my thoughts. Let me know in the comments section below what you guys think. Really appreciate everyone that has been commenting and has been interacting with this channel. Again, I have more of a established channel, Jake Ellenbogen. If you guys ever want to check that out, it's my Rams content. But I've really been trying to break out, with the NFL stuff. I've been covering the NFL for years, just like without actually, putting out content on YouTube. So this is why I'm doing it. So I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys in the next video, which will be on the New York Jets. Take care, folks. Later.